Welcome back to Who's Fly TV. We are back here again today talking more things real estate. But before I drop any gems whatsoever, I'm gonna need you guys to do three things for me. I'm gonna need you to hit that subscription button, turn it gray, hit that notification bell, make it ding, and also turn that thumbs up button blue so you can help with the algorithm and get this video shared as far and wide as possible. Go ahead, I'm gonna give you guys some time. You guys thought it was a game? No, go ahead, click those buttons, please and thank you. Cool, now that we got that out the way, let's actually get into today's topic, which is the different ways to make money in the real estate space. Day in and day out, I have people messaging me, DMing me, asking me, Royston, like, you know your stuff. How can I actually make money in the real estate space? Because I'm not really sure where to even begin. And there is a plethora of different strategies that you can implement to really make money in the real estate space. It all just depends on your risk tolerance, how much time you've got, your comfort levels, and a lot of other things that are really gonna be dependent on you really assessing that in yourself. However, I'm gonna be here today to kind of turn those light bulbs on in your head and give you guys some ideas to even consider. So let's dive right into it. First and foremost, what I think is probably the most popular one, which is the fix and flip. So basically what you're gonna be doing is like what you see on, your HGTV shows that everyone idolizes. You're getting a property, you're fixing it up, and you're gonna go sell it and make a bunch of money, right? So really and truthfully what you're gonna be doing, just so I can broaden it and really tell you guys a little bit more in depth, you're gonna be looking for a property that's undervalued, right? You have to find a property that's undervalued right off the rip. That's the most key element of any type of fix and flip in the real estate space, because you need to make sure you have wiggle room. You want to be able to have margin to make that money, right? So what you're going to do is going to go look for a property that's undervalued. You're going to maybe a property that a seller doesn't want anymore because they're stressed out about the maintenance it has on it, or maybe it's going to cost too much for them to fix up, or maybe they're just sick of having the portfolio that they have and they're trying to liquidate their assets, right? Believe it or not, that is a problem that people actually face. Some people just don't want to have to deal with it anymore and they're ready to just cash out and go retire somewhere. And that's where you come in. You're going to be the savvy investor, the savvy buyer that is like, okay, you know what? I found you. I want that property. I will take on the project that is going to be bestowed upon me, right? So once you find that property that's undervalued, you are going to have to do the renovations. You're going to have to do whatever is necessary to kind of bring that property up to speed. You want to bring that property up to, its new value, so that when you turn around and sell it now, you make the money in between. And I really want to let people know it's not just that cut and dry. It's not that black and white. You have a lot of work to do here, because you need to ensure that you're getting it undervalued, because that is really where your profit margin begins, right? The cheaper you can get a property in regards to what it should be sold to you for, and the work that you can do to boost its value to its heightened value, just creates more profit for you in the middle, right? So that is why it's key for you to do a lot of research beforehand, right? You want to make sure you know the market that you're dealing with. What is the average price for a property like that one in this market? Because the prices vary, the values vary, and you can really miscalculate your entire project by not doing your due diligence and getting the proper research done beforehand, right? Because that's how some people might end up overpaying for a property, which will only further derail the profit that they're expecting. Maybe they don't do the proper inspection to make sure that their renovations estimate is going to be right on par with what they're expecting. The last thing you want is for a renovation project to be more expensive than you anticipated, and that ends up eating out of the profit that you were expecting in the end of it, right? If you over renovate, what money do you have left over? You spent more than you were supposed to. That means that you have less money to make now. The margin has gotten smaller. So that's a lot of due diligence that really comes along with the fix and flip that I think people need to realize. But there can be a very, very happy payday for you at the end of it, right? If you do all your calculations correctly, and not to mention the appreciation that might take place over the course of time for your project, you can walk away with a pretty penny. So that's one way you can make money in the real estate space. However, you do need to have some money on hand. Possibly you may have to borrow some money, which will entail carrying costs. So you really got to scope out your project properly so you know that it's within your means and that you have the capacity to carry it out. Strategy number 2 is the BRRRR strategy. And this is pretty similar to the fix and flip for the beginning process of a project. However, there is some key differences. So I'm just gonna walk you through what the BRRRR strategy is from the get-go, okay? And this is my strategy of preference because I really prioritize cash flow, and I want whatever project I get myself into to result in me getting a monthly income. You know what I mean? Like, this is really one of those things where I'm really prioritize passive income that I can add to over the course of time, right? So what the BRRRR strategy is the B is for buy, okay? So just like the previous strategy, we're gonna buy a property that's undervalued, right? We're gonna see potential for this property to be worth more than it currently is because we see something different in it that we're going to actually bring to this property that is not currently there, right? So we're going to take that. So now that takes us to the R, the first R, that is rehab, okay? Rehab could also be renovate. We are going to do the necessary adjustments and, you know, we're gonna do the necessary upgrades to this property that's gonna take it from here to there, right? So we're gonna do that work that's going to essentially lift this property to its new value, right? And that's where the rehab comes in, right? So that's gonna be the first R. Then we're going to rent. That's the second R. We're gonna rent out this property. We're gonna occupy it with somebody who's gonna pay the rent on this property, and that's going to be the income that this property now generates, okay? So now that we're on the third R, that is refinance. And what a refinance is we're now taking out a new loan with the new value of this property, and you can get the new loan to be up to 80% of that new value, right? And with that loan now, what we're gonna be doing is paying out the previous one, paying back any expenses incurred during that rehab process, and then if you do your BRRRR correctly, you actually might be left with some cash in hand as well too. So that'll be the refinance portion. And what that means is now with this new loan taken out and the rent that we're getting from the second R that we have in this strategy, which is rent, we should have a cash flow. So the rent that you're getting from this new tenant after the rehab that you've done to this property to bring it to its new value should be in excess of the new loan that you get, so that now you're left with a cash flowing asset. And what that last R is in BRRRR is repeat, because you've taken the money out, that you put into the deal, and you recouped all of your money if you've done this correctly and then some. And now you can go do the BRRRR strategy again. So this is a good way to play Monopoly in a sense, where you take one property, you essentially use it to get another property and then another property, and you build yourself a nice little portfolio. So that's really what's key about this BRRRR strategy and why I personally prefer it, and why I think, you know, you should really take a look into it as well too. That is strategy number 2 to make money in the real estate space. So that's a really good way to make passive income, and then also growing your foundation and your portfolio for generational wealth. And that's really what I prioritize, and that's why I got into real estate to begin with. So that's why I veered more towards that strategy. So let's go into the third strategy of how you can make money in the real estate space, which is short-term rentals. So essentially what you'd be doing is having a property, and let's just call it what it is. You know, maybe you put it on Airbnb. You put it on a platform where you can occupy this property and have high turnover to make more money in a smaller amount of time. If you rent out your property to one tenant for the month, you're gonna get a fixed amount from them in rent, and that's just what you make. However, if you have a property and you're gonna have new people occupying it every 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5 days, and then they go and then you put somebody else in it, you can charge more on a nightly basis and potentially make more in the grand scheme of things, and that would actually make you more cash flow. The risk with this particular strategy is that your income is completely unpredictable. It fluctuates. There's a lot of sporadicness to this. I don't know if sporadicness a word. It's more sporadic. I just have to just restructure the whole sentence. It's more sporadic, right? Because you might have 1 month where you're fully booked and you make a lot of money, but then you might have 1 month where it's slow, and maybe you have a couple bookings for that month, and then you know you're left with your hands tied because you didn't make that much money in income for that month, right? And this is really big with, you know, vacation homes or maybe a cottage, because cottages have high seasons and they have low seasons as well too, right? So in your high season, you might make a lot of money, but you've also got to anticipate having some slow months as well too, in the months that are not really as active depending on where your cottage is, right? So that's just something you really want to take into consideration. However, if you do your forecasting correctly and you plan properly and you plan accordingly, you can make potentially a lot of money here, right? And it'll fluctuate from here and there, but you should still be able to make a lot of money if you plan accordingly and you price yourself accordingly to the market that you're in, right? It's gonna take a lot of planning, a lot of forecasting, and a lot of analyzing, right? But once you figure all of that out and you know your numbers, then the possibilities are really endless, and you can kind of mitigate that risk and mitigate that fluctuation. So me personally, I haven't actually utilized this strategy yet, but it is something that I'm kind of enticed by and I'm intrigued by, but I just want to make sure that I take my time before getting into that particular atmosphere. Let's go on to investment strategy number 4, which is wholesaling. What wholesaling is essentially finding really good deals and passing those good deals off to other people who could still find them as good deals, and making a little bit of a finder's fee in between. So what a wholesaler will do is they will, utilize their network, utilize their tactics and their strategies to find undervalued property, and then they're going to pass that opportunity off to somebody else who has interest in buying that property or taking on that property or being assigned that property, and they're going to really make the margin in between. So let me just run you through a little example here, right? So let's just say I am Royston, the savvy wholesaler, right? And you, the viewer, are the distressed owner of this property. What I would do in this scenario is I would come to you and say, hey, viewer, I know you're stressed out, I know you're frustrated, and I know you're expecting a price of about $300,000 for this property, right? But let's just be realistic. The property is X, Y, and Z. I don't think you're gonna get that right now because of these reasons. I will take it off of your hands. I'll put it under contract right now for $220,000, right? $220, that is still a good amount of money. And what I can do is find somebody who will take it off of my hands in the meantime during the duration of that contract, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. You don't have to go and list it. You don't have to go pay a selling real estate agent. You don't have to do any of that. I'm going to take care of it for you. I'm taking this property off of your hands, and I will find somebody who will take this deal because I have a big network. I know people that look for properties like this. I know that people have a bigger vision for this property, and I'm going to also relieve you, the viewer, of having to worry about holding it any longer. So I take this property under contract for $220, and I go find someone else who's willing to take it on for $240. And to them, that's still a good price because they know that they can probably make this house valued at about $400,000 for whatever it is they're gonna do. Maybe they're gonna add a garage, maybe they're gonna do some renovations. Who knows what they're gonna do, but they're like $240 to them is still a good price because they have a different vision for this property. But I still got that property under contract. Like, I'm the one that did the work. I acquired this property. I have the access to this property. So I got it for $220 and I'm letting it go for $240. And that $20K in between is for me. That is my finder's fee. That is my cost of finding a good deal, finding the opportunity in taking a property that was unfavorable to somebody at such price that they were okay with, and finding a new opportunity for someone else that they thought was a good deal for what it is that they want to do with it, right? So there's value in that. There's value in you being able to identify and locate good deals. And on both ends, because you're not ripping off the person who sold it for $220 because they just flat out maybe had their expectations too high. Maybe they didn't have the capacity to do the work that would have brought it to that price that they wanted. Because sometimes, face it, like, sometimes you have to actually do certain things to make your house favorable on the market. And not everyone has the means to do so. So you were able to acquire that property, get this person some funds for the property that they were trying to get rid of, and then you took the property and you gave it to somebody else who has the plan and the vision for that property for whatever their purpose may be. But either way, it was a good deal on both ends. And I think that there's a lot of value in that, but it just takes you being able to identify that opportunity, right? And there's a network that needs to be in place. There's a lot of tactics and strategy that needs to be in place to find and also offload these deals. But that's where you can make the big bucks because you didn't even have to qualify for a mortgage. You didn't have to put no money down. You just had it under contract and you flip that contract over to somebody else. And that's really the beauty of being a wholesaler, is like, you're like a real estate agent with, no rules, and well, less rules and with less rules to you and a lot more flexibility to make whatever price you really set for yourself, right? The fifth and final way to make money in the real estate space that I'm going to speak about today is private lending. And I know that a lot of people get, uncomfortable and squeamish when it comes to private lending because they're like, well, how am I going to be sure that I get my money back? I'm going to tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't be worried about that, because private lending is one of the most sound and secure ways to make money passively in the real estate space, because you get to really be the bank. You get to be the bank in this scenario and really dictate who you lend to, why, how much you lend, and how much you expect to make on the money that you lent out, right? And if it doesn't fit your criteria, then you get to say no. You're in control. And the best reason of all is you get to secure your money against hard, tangible assets, okay? And what securing your money means is whatever you choose to secure it against is now collateral. So if you don't get your money back, whatever it is that I secured it against is mine. You run the risk of losing it. So you get to really have all the risk mitigation in place to ensure that you get your money back, okay? So let's walk through exactly what private lending is. Let's just say I've got about $50,000 that I have actively on hand that I'm not utilizing anytime soon, right? But I know you, the viewer, needs to borrow $50,000 to do the renovations on their project that you're doing. You got your nice little fix and flip that you're doing. You're gonna borrow $50,000 from me to get the renovations underway so that you can do your selling at the end of that project, right? You don't have the $50,000 to do the renovations right now, so you want to borrow it from me. That's perfectly fine. So now I'm going to lend you that $50,000. I'm going to secure it against the property itself. So should you not pay me back my $50,000, I get that property. That property is now collateral in this deal. And I'm going to charge you 10% interest for borrowing my money, right? So now I'm going to be making 10% interest on my $50,000. In addition to my $50,000, I'll get my principal back, I'll get my $50,000, and I'll also get the $5,000 interest that I charged you to borrow said money. That's a quick way that I just turned $50,000 into $55,000, right? What's really cool about this is that I get to analyze the deal that you have on your hands, right? The project that you're doing, the property that you acquired, what you're expecting it to look like in the end, the value that you're expecting in the end, and I can be like, it's a pretty good margin that you have there. I can clearly see how you're gonna pay me back my initial money that I'm lending to you, as well as the interest I'm charging you. And I can say, you know what, I like it. Here's my money. Go ahead and do it, and then I expect my money back by X date. Because you are also telling me that you're expecting your renovations to be done and for you to sell this house in X amount of time, I can look forward to having my money back by that date as well too. Or maybe I give you a little bit of wiggle room, right? So it's all really a lot of transparency in this field. And because of that, I can be confident in what it is that I'm lending my money towards, also the individual executing the deal itself. And that way I can feel confident that my money is making money for me passively while I sleep and focus on whatever it is that my attention is currently wrapped up in, while you go ahead, take my money and multiply it for me and then bring it back to me. So that's why private lending can be really cool, because I'm in your deal without having to actually be in your deal. You know what I mean? You're using my money to execute your deal. And when you're done with your project, I can expect my money back and then some, because I helped you execute it. And I had my price tag for borrowing my money wrapped up into lending it to you in the first place, right? So I get to really be my own bank. The best thing about this strategy is that I can really snowball my money really quickly, because once I get my money back, plus the interest that I charged you back from you, now I take that $55,000 and I go lend it out to somebody else. So now maybe I take that $55,000, I lend it out again, and I get back $62,000. Now I got $62,000 to work with, right? I can keep doing that over and over again. I can keep turning over my money fast, right? And I can do it between a plethora of deals rather than getting my money wrapped up in my own deals that might take a little bit longer to get my money back out of. So it's a really good way to take your money, make money on your money, and keep making money on your money because of the flexibility of it, right? You get your money back, you put it into something else, and you keep snowballing your money, and before you know it, you might have turned $50,000 into $150,000 because you get to dictate how much you make on that money, how long you lend it out for, and rinse and repeat. Not to mention the diversity that I can actually implement with this strategy, right? Let's just say I still have that $50,000 because I didn't lend it out yet. I could lend out 20 to one person for one price. I could lend out the remaining 30 to somebody else for another price, right? And I make both of those sets of money make its own money. Maybe one will come back to me faster and I go re-lend that money out, and I still have the other one deployed to another property, and it's just like, as you can see, I'm getting excited just talking about it, right? But there's just so much room for flexibility and creativity in this space, because you get to now spread your money between maybe multiple deals, but ultimately you're in control of how much you make and when you make it, and it's all passive, right? Like I was saying in one of the other strategies earlier in this video, the money comes in passively once you're collecting your rent, paying off your mortgage, and keeping the excess, right? But what if you just lent out your money and made that money passively? That's also an option for you too. The only thing is, the difference between that is you're not left with the actual asset at the end of it, you just have the capital. So it's just all about it's just the capital. So that just leads back to what I said in the very beginning of this video, is everyone's gonna have their own comfort level, everyone's gonna have their own preferences and their different risk tolerances. And that's why I think that real estate is so amazing, because there's not just one shoe size fits all type of approach to this. There's so many different ways that you can make money in this space. It's just a matter of you figuring out which one caters best to you. And I hope that I was able to bring some value and really shed some light and, you know, open your eyes to some other options, right? Because there is a lot, even some that I didn't even get into today, which we're gonna save for another video. So that's more reason for you to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell and stay tuned, right? So that being said, make sure you guys took your notes. I can tell you there's a lot of money to be made out here, and I would love to see you make it. So until next time, we'll see you guys really soon. Peace.